And my kid has brought me a present, and that is that this bolt right here is stripped, so I can't tighten it. So I was like, no big deal, I'll just take it out. But I'm hitting the sprocket. I don't know if I can get it out there. This really isn't the best way to handle this. I can't get it through the sprocket. I probably could if I got in here and beat it up enough. But I figured, you know what? I've kind of done a little series on these things. So I'm going to do one more video, and that's how to remove basically a rear end. So first things first, we're going to take this wheel off. And what you've got to do to get that wheel off, if you come over here like this, and there's a cotter pin, cotter key, keeper that you've got to get out of here. Axle end, whatever you want to call it. You got a little cotter pin. And then you can remove your castle nut. And your cap, this cap was what held, there's supposed to be a dust cover on there that goes like that. So the next step is go get one of those Harbor Freight jack stands that you replaced because you can't put your car on them because they'll kill you. And lift your quad up on that like that. Just like that. And then what you can do is you can think about pulling that wheel off. The splines look okay on this end, so maybe we'll just tighten it back up and we'll see what happens. And you can remove this spacer. All right, so what you need to do now is you need to remove these lock nuts here. You need to loosen them up. And so what you can either do is you can do it before you take this wheel off, or you can do it after. Slide that back on. Set that down. Get you an adjustable spanner, crescent wrench. That's what we all call them in Alabama. And loosen these bad boys up. And you can take it, you put it back up on your not safe for car work stand. You can take this off. Alright, so now what we want to do, since we're driving, we're trying to get this, and then you can hammer here on your axle and it'll drive it out. What you need to do though is before you start hammering on the axle, you don't want to use a metal hammer, because if you booger all this up, you can't get your nut back on. You're going to wish you hadn't done that. So take a block of wood. And you can just drive it all out. You can see how far it shifted. Now I'm not going to take mine all the way out, because like I said, all I'm trying to do is replace this bolt right here. So I'm just going to drift this out. And I'm going to go find, those threads are gone. Gonzo. So it had nothing to hold on to. But if you want to drive it all the way out, you can take your chain off. And then just drive this out, and that's how you can also change the rear sprocket. Then what you would do is once the shaft is out, you have to drive the sprocket off this way. So take the shaft, take these off, and you'd have your sprocket would ride. It stays on as you pull all this off. This stays here, and it presses on this way. So you'd take your drive shaft, or your drive shaft out. Your axle out, and then press. I can probably get it. See, there we go. Just as an example. Here, maybe we can pull it all the way out. And here's your rear sprocket if you want to change that. This is how you change it. It rides just like that. Change that out. Your brake disc. Alright, so then if you wanted to take the brake disc out, what you can do is, if you don't want to take all of this off, if you just gently press in the piston in there, you can remove the entire disc. That's in pretty good shape. Guess my kids don't use the brakes very often. But then to put it back, it rides, this hub here rides in there. So you slide that back in there, press that in, and then to put the whole contraption back together, once you've got it where you want it, you slide all that back in. But what I need to do is replace this bolt. So we're going to wait a minute before we slide all that back together. Let's just move the camera up a little bit closer. Alright, so this is what I'm working on here. I think that shows up. And what's happened is, I guess this has been loose for a while and the kid's just been letting it ride. And this is deformed a little bit. So what I did was I just got some random hardware that'll fit in there. I don't even know what size this is, but it'll be fine. And I'm going to replace it. But my concern is this washer isn't going to sit flush because that's all oblong, wallered. It's wallowed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a file and just file that down, flatten it out so that washer will sit flush. All right, so like I said, all I'm doing now is just kind of cleaning this edge up just to give it something to sit flush against. I think this is the last season for these four-wheelers for the kids. They're starting to get a little big for them. Although I weigh about 240 and this four-wheeler will pull me around just fine. But they've had them for a couple years and the quality. If you enjoy tinkering on things, they're not bad. And if you're on a budget, they're not bad. But they are definitely not anywhere near a Honda or a Yamaha, Polaris, a Suzuki. They're just not that. But they're also not, they don't claim, I mean, get these things on Facebook Marketplace for nothing. I got this one real cheap because it's pink. That's exactly what my kids wanted. Worked out for me. All right. So I just lift it up on the back of the four-wheeler and push down on the hub here. It's a weird looking nut. All right, so now I'm going to have non-standard, you know, every time I come in here, this is going to be a 13 mil, it's going to be 1/2 inch or something, but that hole's all jacked anyway, and it'll get her through the rest of the winter. So that's there. I'm not going to tighten it up because I've got to adjust it for the chain anyway. So I'm just going to put all this back in here. Oof. All right, once you get that in, you spin your nuts back on. what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this up. Then we'll put the wheel on, set it back down, and tighten those up. All right, I don't know if you can see, but that race that I was talking about is now in the housing there. Again, I don't know a torque spec. Couple of Duggars. It's just the rear end on your kid's four-wheeler. Surely it'll be fine, right? Chain is on. Now what you can do is you can adjust the rear end and set that tension. And this is what sets the position of the rear end. You can adjust the forward and the aft of the rear end, which adjusts chain tension. And you can just eyeball it. Make sure you want your axle to be straight. You want your tension to be good. You don't want too much tension, but you don't want it too tight and you don't want it too loose. That doesn't feel bad. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Because you can put these two lock nuts back. Keeper nuts. They just keep it from backing off. All right, so to tighten these four, on this one, the factory, it's a 14 and a 17, as best I remember. This is the 17. Let's see, 17 there, and 14 on the inside, and 17 and 14 in this one. I don't even know what that is yet. That's the ones I replaced. They're going to be a surprise. This helps if you put it back on your unsafe Harbor Freight jack stand. So it gives you a little room to maneuver your wrench without hitting the floor. All right, so these are the mysteries. Let's go with 1/2 and 9/16. Feeling all 9/16 out here. Boom. What do we have out here? So 2 9/16. I reckon so. Just shy stripped. All right. Now we got to tighten that up. Nothing to that. But before we do that, don't forget your spacer. And your wheel. And let's see if we've got a washer. I don't know if I've got room. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, babe. I'm gonna go find a washer. Alright, so I lied. I'm not gonna get a washer. I'm just gonna put this dust cap base back on, I think, and just send it. Cotter pin. This one's super duper long, so I'm gonna trim it up. Kind of thinking about whether or not I should put a washer on here. I guess I'm not gonna worry about it. We've come this far. We'll just monitor the situation. I am going to trim that off though, because that drives me batty. Close your eyes and squeeze. See, I didn't even hear that land anywhere. I don't know where that piece went. There we go. Bob's your uncle. That should have it. Brake works, and yeah. That'll do for another couple days. All right then, so that's how you mess with one of these Chinese.